But I looked over and I saw a small figure and I heard drips of water. So me being terrified and 11, I ran out of my bed, turned on the light, and there was nothing there, but there was ever so slightly a small puddle.
Welcome to Tell Me a Ghost Story, the late night call-in podcast where we delve into the world of the supernatural and explore the eerie and unexplained. I'm your host, Michelle Newman. This podcast features true stories from our callers that will send shivers down your spine and leave you questioning the existence of the afterlife. So grab a cozy blanket, turn down the lights.
Hey, this is Sarah, and I'm from Luverne, Alabama, and this story takes place about 5 or 6 years ago when I was living in Florida. And my ex-husband and I were on our way to visit a friend, and when we were just about to pull into his yard, I saw a man facing the front door with his back to us. And he looked like a real human being. Solid. He had long hair and some shorts on, a t-shirt. I could see his socks and everything. And next thing I know, bloop, he just went through the whole front door. And I told my ex-husband to drive around the block a minute, because I've seen things my whole life, but I've never seen anything go through a door or a wall, and it was just a lot for my brain. And then when I finally did go over to our friend's house, I kept asking, is anybody else here? Like I was just trying to make sense of it, but no one else was there. And months later, I mentioned it to the guy who lived there, and he said his brother-in-law had seen the exact same man that I described going through his house. So it confirmed it for me, and I hope to see something else again soon. You guys have a great day, and I love your show, and I really love the lady Cindy that calls in all the time. Bye.
Thank you so much, Sarah. There's something about watching a solid, fully formed person just poof through a door. Makes you wonder who he was and why he keeps popping up on that doorstep.
Hey Michelle, this is Tessa. I grew up moving around a lot because my dad was in the military, so we were always living in temporary houses, me, my brother, and my stepmom. When I was 5, we rented this massive old Victorian house in East Texas. 3 stories, creaky floors, winding staircases. The attic was full of stuff that belonged to the owner. Antique furniture, trunks, and this long glass case filled with porcelain dolls. There must have been 100 of them, all lined up like soldiers. And there was one I just fell in love with. Red hair, green eyes, blue silk dress. I begged my dad to let me have her, but no, he even locked the attic. A month later, I'd forgotten all about her and came home, and the red-haired doll was sitting on my bed. At first, I thought it was a surprise. Played with her nonstop till Dad got home. But when he saw the doll, he completely lost it. He yelled, took the doll away, and marched straight to the attic, only to find the door still locked with his key in his pocket. Years later, I learned the house's history. The builder had a daughter who died when she was 8. And back then, it was common that to make a doll in the child's likeness with her real hair and the same clothes she wore when she died. I think that red-haired doll was that little girl.
Thank you, Tessa, for your story. Dolls can already be pretty unsettling, and that's without them having human hair or being able to escape locked attics.
Hey, Michelle, I really dig the show. I can't believe there's not more people watching or listening to you. Nevertheless, 1993, I was working down at 210 Post Street. It was an old estate jeweler. Long offices, long hallways, and I'd been told by some people there that I knew that they thought a ghost that would ring doorbells when they were often in their office alone. And sure enough, first time I had a chance to be there by myself, all of a sudden the doorbell rings and I go there, there's no one there. Well, there was a dog there named Lulu that, pretty chill, but all of a sudden, we're sitting in my desk and runs under this desk, and I went to look for her, and I look down this long hallway, and I see who I think is Brett, who was one of their coworkers, and all of a sudden I get a call, like a few seconds later, hey, this is Brett, how you doing? And so I'm like, aren't you in the office down the hallway? Well, it wasn't Brett, it was the ghost of this place. I guess he'd shown up before. He was a tall gentleman like in a red flannel shirt, and I guess he owned the estate jewelry place before this other gentleman took over. Meanwhile, the doorbells kept on ringing, and it was definitely a strange place. But that is all I have for now. I have more, but I'll leave it at that. I really enjoy your program very much, and thank you so much.
Thank you for calling in. I'd love to hear more of your stories. I love a workplace haunting because they're so specific. This wasn't a stormy night in a creepy mansion. This wasn't a haunted house out in the country. This was a Tuesday at the office, and suddenly you've got a ghost in a red flannel shirt walking the hallways like he still owns the place. Which I guess, in his mind, he probably does.
Hi, Michelle. This is Ashley calling from Salt Lake City, Utah, and I've got a ghost story from when I was about 11. My family went to California, and we went and visited the Queen Mary. Now, my family's rather large, about 12 of us, aunts, uncles, and cousins that were there. One of my cousins, who's a year younger than me, he got too scared, so my Aunt Elle had to take him back up. When she was in the elevator by herself, she felt a little hand grab her knee, and when she looked, she was in the elevator completely alone. So we finished the tour, and we're snapping pictures. Now, when we get back home to Utah, my mother happens to notice that in one of the photos of the pool, there's a little girl in a blue gown in the corner of the pool. Now, it's been said that she drowned there when it was still a functioning cruise ship before it turned to becoming a warship. So we found this interesting, and my mother is a writer, so she wrote a book about our experiences on there. She changed some names, so the book is called The Ghost of Queen Anne, and it goes through and documents our experiences. And she made up a story behind the little girl in the pool. So we decided to call her Victoria. And as my mother was writing the story about Victoria, I started to notice that some strange things were happening at the house. The first thing that I noticed was anytime my mother sat down at the family computer to try to write this story, the computer would glitch and shut off and get a virus, even though we had protection. Then I told her, hey, so you don't lose your manuscript, email it over to me. When she emailed it to me, everything was in code, and it was errored, and it was broken, and it did not send over as a regular manuscript should have. Then things started to get a little bit weirder. I lived in the basement, and I was the only one that was down in the basement, right next to the family room that had the family computer. I started hearing wet, squelching footsteps in the middle of the night. It woke me up once, and I looked over, and I always had a nightlight, but I looked over, and I saw a small figure, and I heard drips of water. So me being terrified and 11, I ran out of my bed, turned on the light, and there was nothing there, but there was ever so slightly a small puddle on my floor where the carpet was wet. Now, we didn't have any animals at the time, so we can go ahead and eliminate a pet accident. But I just thought that was so strange. My mother ended up finishing the manuscript, but not before we had flickering lights, other mysterious wet spots that appeared throughout the house, and then we started hearing children laughter. As soon as she wrote the last paragraph and finished the book, all of the weird occurrences stopped. We experienced no more children's laughter, no more wet spots, and I didn't have any more dripping nightmares. It was really weird the way that it ended, but for some reason, when she finished the manuscript, the hauntings stopped. It's almost like we manifested the hauntings ourselves. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to my story. Big fan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. That raises such an interesting question about the nature of these connections. Do our thoughts, our intentions, our storytelling actually strengthen paranormal activity? You changed the name of the little girl by the pool. But did you conjure a new spirit named Victoria?
Hi, this is Cindy Ketron calling from haunted Avon, Indiana. I've got a true ghost story for you. It's called It Was a Dark and Stormy Night. Well, anyway, this happened to my grandfather. He had just become a widower back in 1982. Grandma had passed away April the 1st, 1982. And so, but anyway, Grandpa was left alone. His housekeeper had just left for the night. And he fell asleep in his armchair, and the radio was off, and the television had run out. It was about 1 a.m. in the morning, and he turned it off. There was no pet living with him at the time. And so, anyway, Grandpa thought he heard a mysterious thumping noise. It was sounded like somebody was walking around in the bedroom, and absentmindedly he said, "Grace, is that you?" And there was only a heavy breathing. And then later that night when he went to bed, he kept hearing a heartbeat, and he would hear that heartbeat thump, 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 until the day he died, had his fatal heart attack on December 17th, 1982. But he heard that mysterious beating noise every night when he went to bed. He went to the ear doctor, he went to the medical doctor. He says, "Do I have tendinitis in my ears or anything?" And they said, "No, you're hearing still fine. You don't need a hearing aid or anything." Grandpa used to say, "I won't be around by Christmas," and sure enough, he was right. Anyway, this is Cindy Ketron calling from Avon, Indiana. It was a dark and stormy night. Grandpa heard his deceased wife's heartbeat until he died. Thank you for listening to the Ghost Story.
Thank you, Cindy. That title was perfect. You know, in Poe's Telltale Heart, that beating sound was driven by guilt and psychological torment. But this is something entirely different. Your grandfather's heartbeat wasn't guilt. That's a love story.
Hi, Michelle. My name's Glenn. I'm from Windsor, Nova Scotia. I don't really have a ghost story, but my mom is a longtime listener of your podcast. She absolutely loves it, and I don't know if you really do shout-outs, but I think it would absolutely make her Christmas if you could give her a shout-out and just, wish her a Merry Christmas or something. If not, I totally understand. Anyway, have a super happy holiday. And yeah, thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Glenn, from Windsor, Nova Scotia. Yes, I absolutely can do a shout-out. So, to Glenn's mom, Merry Christmas. Your child loves you enough to call into a ghost story podcast. I hope you two had a wonderful holiday season, and here's to 2026 being a better year for all of us. Today we heard apparitions walking through doors, dolls escaping locked attics, workplace ghosts who never clocked out, spirits following stories home, and the love that transcends death. There's more to this world than we can measure. If you have a ghost story you'd like to share, please call in. Whether you're a first-time caller or one of our regulars, your experience matters. And this community we're building together is something really special, and I'm so grateful for every single one of you. That's all we have this week, folks. Do you have a ghost story? Call 701-484-2666. That's 701-484-2666. Or go to tellmeaghoststory.com and leave your story there. Thank you to all the callers who left messages this week. I'm your host, Michelle Newman, signing off. See you next week.
Beat it.